Meeting to order. This meeting is held as a virtual meeting given that the Illinois governor has declared the corona pandemic a disaster. I have determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the disaster. I have also determined that it is not feasible due to the disaster and the disaster declaration to have a library trustee, the library director, or the library's attorney present at the library. Okay, I'm going to have you each confirm that you can hear, please. Andrea?
I can hear.
Catherine?
Yes, I can hear.
George?
I can hear you.
Bonnie? Did I say Bonnie?
No, but I can hear you.
I'm flipping these too quickly. You said yes, Bonnie?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, did I get everyone? Okay. All right, so roll call. Oh no, a roll call, Gina?
Arnold.
Aye.
Beckwith.
Here.
Cheng.
Here.
Farkapisi. Here. Kotsinis.
Here.
Lindsay absent. Sutton. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the
Allegiance
flag
to the flag of the United States of America,
and
to the republic
republic for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all. The Warren Newport Public Library District provides the community with access to information, kindles the imagination of children and adults, and supports lifelong learning. Would anyone like to speak in public comment? Okay, correspondence.
So we have a couple of things. So let me share my screen here for a second. Sorry, I lost my, where did that go? Okay, can everyone see my screen? There's this is a Word document. This was an email from a patron that Joe received Wednesday, September 2nd, which she shared with me, and I responded, which I basically I'll just kind of summarize, and I can send this out to the board after the meeting. I removed her personal information for privacy reasons, but basically, long story short, the patron was pointing out that we have 30 minutes for patrons to use computers. This person's attempting to work on a resume. It just wasn't enough time, and was expressing basically the challenges that presents, and asking for us to come up with a reconsidering our decision on time allowed on computers and some flexibility, maybe in order. I did respond and explain to the patron the thought process that went behind the decision. Although when Joe and I talked about this, we agreed that we need to find a solution to this problem. It's not just this patron that's faced this issue. It is other patrons as well. So we had a meeting about this last week. We were at the management team meeting. We were missing a couple of key members of that. We're having another management team meeting tomorrow. We should have a way to address this issue after tomorrow's meeting. So there are a couple of different possibilities we're going to discuss, and we should have hopefully a resolution, which may not be perfect, but it will be better. So that was the patron comment, and I think it's better for me to share this via email after the meeting so you can see it in full.
And Ryan, could I ask you, once you make a decision, could you follow up with her and tell her what the changes are, if there are any?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll let the board know as well. I have another piece of correspondence to Joe, which I don't know maybe this made it into the packet. This is just regarding the we discussed this before about we have to close the library on election day. There was the law that was passed. Does that law apply to public library districts? basically what this memo says at the end of the day, long story short, the legislature's intent was to extend the existing state employees holiday to only schools and state universities. So as of right now, unless something changes, the Warren Newport Public Library will not be closed on election day. As a reminder to the board, our policy says we give our staff time to go vote. So that should not be a problem for any staff. If they need to vote, they can take time away from work, and that's not an issue. So no one will miss any pay, or it's not a barrier for our employees to vote. So.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Ryan, on the first note, what was the date?
Oh, when we received that, it was September 2nd.
Okay.
But
I'm
it was
just wondering
answered shortly after that,
Okay.
within a few days.
Right.
But will we be able to get changes in place to help them work on their resume this month?
Yeah, I think so. I think once we've got a couple of ideas on the table, we're going to discuss extending the computer time for patrons that's on the table. Another thing we've talked about is maybe trying to set up a special time for people to come in specifically to do resume writing or use computers for job assistance. So we've got different ideas on the table, which we can implement quickly. It won't take long once we make a decision. Maybe just a couple of days to.
I don't know if you had because I don't know how long it was up there or what you read, but one of the things the person said was that when she was, I guess you get a message on the computer saying you've got 10 minutes left or something, and she had barely gotten started. And she said there were only 3 people using computers that day. So I think, one of the things up for discussion is how would the staff best navigate that to let somebody have a little bit more time if they needed it. But they still want to, I'm sure, do it consistently. So I'm thinking that's one of the things that they have to work out so that they all are on the same page with how they're handling it.
Don't we have computer laptops that you can check out that stay in the library? Couldn't someone check one out and go to a carrel? They'd be given a chair and go to a carrel away from everyone. Because what my concern about that is if they're in the same bank of computers and someone sits down and they're limited to an hour and they see someone else who was sitting there before they arrived and now they have to go, yet the other person is still sitting there. I don't want it to cause a problem for the librarians in the office. So is there a way for them to check out one of the computers we have and go sit in a carrel where they're not quite so visible by other patrons?
Andrea, good question, and that is one of our concerns. Is staffing and what staff time it takes to help patrons, and that is an issue. But in terms of the laptops we have available, we've deployed a lot of laptops to employees. So I don't know that we do have laptops that we are giving patrons right now. So that's one of the things that we talked about is just that we've, for example, all the laptops we had for the flex to use for the flex space. We distribute those to employees to use to work remotely. So that's one of the issues with the laptops right now, is they're tied up with staff. Another thing with that is that you find with laptops with patrons that come to the library, most patrons are comfortable with that desktop environment where they've got the mouse and keyboard. There's some patrons, you give them a laptop and it's like giving them a completely different device and they have challenges using it. So that's another factor as well. Some people prefer, most people, I would say, patrons who use our public computers prefer that desktop experience.
Well, I know you guys will come up with a solution because this seems very, very important, and this is one of the things we want to do is help people find jobs. So I trust you guys. We have such a great staff and creative.
Agreed.
This is a core offering for our library. I mean, not only helping to find jobs in general, but computer usage has been one of the things that we've offered for quite a while and a lot of people depend on us for. I know we need to keep the amount of time people are in the library limited. There's got to be another option though. Could we at least explore the possibility of having low-cost circulating laptops something that could be checked out and used even in the parking lot with our Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things we talked about with that, George, because that came up, we had to find the money for it, which is possible, but B, it's hard to get some of those low cost laptops because, and that may have changed, since a couple weeks ago. But I know a lot of the school districts invested heavily in laptops, so there's not a lot of inventory right now. At least last time that I asked about it. So, but we can revisit that. Maybe that's changed.
My office is moving the beginning of November, and I'm sure there are going to be a lot of new computers purchased, and they'll be perfect. I mean, there'll be older computers maybe available that would be wiped before they'd be given. I mean, is this something that maybe I should ask about? Because even if there are 5 or 10 laptops, I mean, people are using them right now. Like, I know the laptop sitting on my desk is not going to come to the new office. If you want me to inquire, I will.
I don't. I'm not sure how to answer that. I guess we could certainly, look into it. I mean, yeah, Andrea, why don't you ask and let us know what the answer is? Why not? Doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah, I'm
There are
happy to do
pluses
that.
and minuses there. Obviously, we get something for nothing, but it's not really nothing because there are still costs involved to refurbishing those laptops for patron use.
Yeah, there's the IT support for those, exactly, because we're a little bit limited with our IT staff right now. So, but yeah, I mean, it's worth at least inquire and find out, and then we can go from there, Andrea. So I don't think it hurts to ask.
Will do.
Maureen wants to say something.
One of the big things with when somebody isn't real familiar with how to do this and then how to print it or download it to a flash drive or whatever, that's the issue. And so that's why it works out best if we were just to extend the time for them. And then we're there to help them and assist them to get it printed off and things like that, because it doesn't just end with them doing the resume. They usually want, printed off and stuff like that. So, and that's important to be able to help them with that. So I didn't.
Yeah, Noreen, that's an important context. Even though we're trying our best not to interact too much with patrons, the reality is a lot of the patrons that come in to use our computers, they need to interact with staff. They need staff help. So I not to say it's not a bad idea to circulate laptops, because I think that's a great idea, because there's certainly people that would take advantage of that. However, there are some people that just wouldn't be a solution for them because they wouldn't be able to do it on their own. They're still going to need help from staff.
And
As
one
I
of the
recall, this particular person who wrote the letters, said that part of what took her so long was that she did need a lot of help and navigating and finding and, figuring out what to do next. And so for that person to take a laptop to her car and use the wireless outside wouldn't really work very well.
Well, and one of the other things, if we extend the time in some ways, it will shorten the amount of contact for the staff with that person, because as it is now, they're coming up and they're upset or they want more time, and do I have any more time? So if we decide to extend the time, it will actually shorten the contact between staff and the patron, because they won't be coming back and forth.
Anything else? All right, let's go on to the consent. Anyone want to remove anything from it? Okay, who would like to make a motion then?
So move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Okay, Gina. Gina?
Sorry, my button, my microphone was on.
It's okay.
Sutton.
Oh, aye, sorry.
Linsdau, absent. Kotsinis.
Aye.
Arnold.
Aye.
Parkapisi.
Aye.
Cheng.
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, President's report. Anything, questions, comments, concerns? Anyone else have a report?
Just want to say from my side that the library's virtual story times are really cool, and my kids still appreciate them very much.
I watched a couple of Miss Patty's now here and there. Anyone else? Okay, Ryan.
So I'm looking at my list of things to share because I have many, and what fits under library operations update, what fits under executive director's report. So I think in terms of executive director's report, I will mention that with we're making progress on, so I would just want to update the board on that CARES Act grant with Lake County. So they did co-sign the intergovernmental agreement that the board adopted. So we're still, submitting information to them, compiling things, and we've gotten recent updates on rules. So one of the things that we are able to do apparently is submit time if we can prove that time that staff have used has been dedicated to COVID-19 related response. And so really we think with the management team in particular, you can make a strong argument that, maybe since mid-March that all of our time has been dedicated to COVID-19 response. So that's the final piece of that puzzle, is getting that time together. And we just really got this, Doug just found this out the other day. So the management team tomorrow, another thing that we're going to talk about with the managers is tracking that time. And so we can put in for that. So that and we need to get that done sooner rather than later. Because the deadline is October 15th, but we want to have it done well before then. So I'm hoping next week we can have that sent and submitted. Let's see. So we're director support. So the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, EDI committee, met today. And it was our second meeting. We had a really good meeting, and one of the things that I'd like to bring to the board is possibly as soon as the next committee of the whole, Eddie Christon volunteered for that committee to do an overview of our community demographics and talk about areas in our community that are potentially underserved, and basically looking at the demographics of our community, things we can do, not just the EDI committee, but the library and the board could do to better serve those groups. So what I'd like to do is share that presentation with the board, possibly as soon as the next committee of the whole. So we're making progress there. And one of the things that we hope to do on the EDI committee is identify issues we have at the library, and if there's anything the board can do to help create change, positive change, bring those issues to the board and work with the board to, perhaps change some policies that need change, that type of thing. So still a second meeting, but I think with each meeting, as Jane Marsh, who's on the call, who's chairing the committee, said, it was very daunting the first meeting. And today I feel like we made some progress. And I think the more we meet, the more progress we'll make. We also talked about how we need to do, really the first step is to educate staff on the fact that this is an issue. Why does this committee exist? What are the issues that, our community is facing, our library is facing? So I'm really excited about the path we're going with the EDI committee. I think everything else probably I'll save for library operations. So any questions about anything in the executive director's report about the CARES Act?
I just have one thing I'd like to say, which is after reading the part about the patron suspensions, I just like to say I'm sorry this is happening, and I think that our security team, Eddie et al., deserve lots of kudos for what they're doing. I think they're doing a great job.
Thanks for saying that, Joe. I talked with Eddie when I was in the library the other day about it, because I felt the same when I saw how many issues we're still getting. It's a conundrum to me. I don't get it, but Eddie was his normal, lovely self.
I know.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything on Ryan's report?
Just a reiteration of that exact same point. I'm a little disturbed by the number of incidents that are listed there of people I understand people forgetting a mask. I mean, sure, we're all still new to this, but the outright hostility towards people asking you to wear one shouldn't be acceptable at this point.
Well, and it isn't that new. I mean, if you go out of your house, to go to the Jewel or any store, you have to have a mask. So why we're different, I don't know. I just don't get it.
Right. And to
Exactly.
not leave after 3 warnings, but then when you're threatened with a longer suspension, then you go. That's an encounter that's
That's
kind
not
of
pleasant.
over
Yeah.
the top. Yeah.
I have a question about the diversity committee. I hope we don't have all white people on it. And if we don't have diversity currently in the library staff to serve on committee, maybe we need to reach outside the library, because, you know, I have to tell you, as a person who falls in one of those groups, something that, you know, really irritates people is a bunch of white people deciding for them what they need. So maybe that's something that we should make sure that there is representation on the committee, whether from the inside or from the outside, but at least to address the issue and continue to try to get other people on it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You know, I think the committee is probably more white than it should be, honestly. But if you, I said this at the last board meeting. I think honestly, if you look at our staff, it is not reflective of the community that we serve. I mean, that's just the truth, and it's a hard truth, and it's hard to, you know, hard to admit. And I take some ownership for that. I mean, it's something that I think I identified when I started 5 years ago, and you know, we certainly talked about it, and we haven't done nearly enough to address it. And you know, I'll admit it. You know, that's a failure of our organization. But we do have some. I think we have is about as diverse a group as we have based on the staff that we have at the library, and not just diversity with race or sexual orientation, but also age, experience. Different departments are represented. So I think it's a strong committee, and also everyone that's on it is extremely passionate and dedicated, and you know, they want to enact positive change, and they want to do everything they can to serve everyone that we serve in the library district. So I will say that. But yeah, we've got a long way to go. We've got a lot to do in terms of making sure that our staff is reflective of the community we serve. That's no question about that.
Maybe as a long range plan, we could put on a program once a year. What is library science? How do you get a library science degree? You know, publicize it at the high school. And
Andrea, I'm sorry. Finish. I just want to say I was excited because you said that. We talked about that today. Go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
no, that was done.
No, I was going to say one of the things we talked about today was doing just that. And because, you know, I know ALA talks about it as you know, the big umbrella organization for libraries, but really it starts at the local level. And are there programs we can do here to get more students interested, especially people of color interested in librarianship, because that is underrepresented group. So it's a great idea and something we talked about today.
I think with regard to that, it's you have to go beyond the standard library publications and identify particular ones where you post openings.
Absolutely.
One suggestion I'll throw out there, Ryan, and this is something we used to do with some of our board work. We will, I don't know if anybody remembers the committees we used to have where we'd bring in members of the community to fill in for expertise we didn't have. It's something that I think we could possibly leverage for this, where we can bring in citizen members of this committee, not just staff members, so that you can fill in for experiences that we don't have within ourselves. And I know that's something that's on the roadmap for the future, but it's something that maybe we want to look at in the nearer term than the farer term.
Yeah, I think that, and Jan put in the chat, she'll reach out. Well, she said she'll reach out to the community in the future. Yeah, I think that that's certainly something we should consider. Also, I think that I think before we get too much help from the outside, there are things that we've recognized internally that we need to do. And I think one of the first steps is just the education on why we formed this committee, just the real basics before we take maybe that next step. And I think that's something that we can do internally, but I think you're right. I think sooner rather than later, we'll need to solicit the help of other groups or other people in our community for sure.
Okay, ready for operations update? Okay.
Were there, oh yeah, that is next on the, okay, perfect, I'm sorry. In terms of operations, one of the things I mentioned to the board at the, we talked about the computer usage, which I had under this topic. So I think we can move on from that. And once again, I'll follow up with the board on what we ended up doing. The LED lighting project, I expressed that I had some concerns with the idea of not going out to bid for the project. So I talked to Roger Ritzman. We had a good conversation about it. So we will need to formally go out to bid on the LED lighting project, which initially I didn't think we would need to do. But when we looked at it, we did the litmus test for, okay, is this proposal we have on the table, is this within the law where we can do it? It just didn't feel quite right to me, and Roger agreed. So what we will do though is we will do one phase of the project this calendar year, so we can take advantage of the incentives that are still out there for that phase. And we'll move forward with Verde, who we worked with on that previous phase, the last fiscal year. But after that, we will have to go out to bid for the rest of the LED lighting project, which is just the right thing to do in the way we need to do things. And maybe we'll save even more money doing it that way, hopefully. So that's an update on that. The Wi-Fi hotspots, they are configured. They are in the tech services department right now, and we're going to try to get them out as soon as we can, but we need to get instructions for how to use them. We need to figure out where circulation is going to store them. We need to, I think we have the cases. So that back of the house work is being done, but I think the hard piece, which is configuring them, is done. So we should have those out very soon. The phone system, we've started that implementation process. We're still probably, end of October-ish in terms of having that new phone system, but that's in the works. And overdue items, I just wanted to update the board. There's been a lot of feedback about people getting these notices where they returned items and they get this notice saying, your book is overdue. And someone thinks, well, I returned that 5 days ago. So we're changing the language in the notices, basically saying, I don't have it in front of me verbatim, but in essence, this is a courtesy notification. If you return your books, keep in mind that we're keeping them under quarantine, so that still may be reflective of your record, but there are no fines. You don't have to worry about it. So we're changing the language on those notices, something we probably should have done earlier. But we realized, okay, we can change the messages, and people will now know that, and Noreen wants to add to that hopefully that will help.
The two earlier, I think the two very early notices that come out before they're even due, we're not going to be sending a couple of those because it just confuses people more. So for a while, we won't be sending the real early ones.
And they're quarantining for how many days now? The books?
Oh, 6.
Still 6, okay.
And to be, by the way, to be clear on the phone system, we went with GoToConnect, and we're under budget for what we allocated for that, which is good. So we are like formally working with their implementation team to get this rolling. So I'm pretty confident that end of October is a pretty firm timeline for this, assuming we don't run into any unanticipated issues, which with a project like this you always can. So.
Anything else?
Ryan, the van.
Ryan, one quick question before we.
That's next. Yeah.
The overdue notices. I know that the amount of time that books are overdue is likely going to be creeping upwards, and probably has been significantly. Are we suspending library accounts for books that are overdue at this point? I know at one point it was like 10 days. or something like that, that a book could be out before we started suspending service. Have we changed those to accommodate the delays related to quarantining a book?
I know that we did going into this. I don't think that we ever reverted back to suspending patrons, but let me follow up on that because Noreen, do you have any insight into that? I don't think we went back to suspending patrons, right? Because we changed it.
Right. I think that's why we didn't want to go too far into the notices, because there is a certain point where they get the notice that says they just won't be allowed to check out until they return some items. So we'd have to clarify exactly where we're at with that.
It's great question, George. We'll follow up on it.
Okay, Van?
Yeah, so I don't say we ran into an issue, but we got multiple quotes for the van wrap, and they were dramatically different, and there were different materials that different vendors were offering to use. So since the quotes were so dramatically different, we thought we better do some investigation and make sure that there's a reason this quote is cheaper than the other one or this one's more expensive. So Sandy and her team did a lot of research and had some questions. So we went back to Michael Sondrowski, who was the consultant that helped us with this library van project. And he gave us clarification on which vendor with the materials would be best. And it turns out the cheaper quote is the one that we want to go with anyway, because of the materials they use. It's higher quality. And Noreen or Sandy, you can help fill in the blanks here if I get this wrong. We're not doing a full wrap, because the problem with that is if you do a full wrap, you get one scratch or scuff on a part of the van wrapping. Then you got to completely do it again. Whereas with the cutouts, as we're going with, if there's one cutout that gets damaged or we need to replace it, you just need to do that one little section. So long story short, we're going with that cheaper vendor with the higher quality material that we need. And I don't think we have a timeline yet, because we literally just made that decision today, but hopefully it shouldn't take long. So hopefully next week we'll have the van back and wrapped and ready to go.
And it's up at the same place where we did some of the other upfitting. They're going to do it, so it's there now. The vehicle is there.
Okay, anything else on that? Audit then.
So yeah, I mean, at least the WNPL part of the audit is complete. They're going to present next month to the board. Doug and I had kind of a final closing Zoom meeting with them, and they had a couple more questions for us. And I did ask Joe with Eder and Casella, is there anything that you want to tell me right now that is like major issues or changes we would need to make? And they were pretty satisfied with the way things are operating. So hopefully he'll have some more feedback for us, because I know we always like to learn from the process. But I think it went rather well. Andrea had a chance to talk. I think you talked to Joe with Eder Casella, and Andrea might have asked the same questions. So I don't know, Andrea, do you want to add anything about the audit process from your perspective, from what you saw of it?
Seems like it's going well. I did ask them, even if it's a small thing, to let us know, even if it doesn't rise to the level of an internal control weakness, because we always just want to improve. So far so good.
Yeah, so that report will be next regular board meeting is when it's scheduled. So a partner from their firm will be coming to do the presentation. Executive summary, big picture overview, and so you'll get a chance to look at that and ask any questions. Andrea will get, if anyone else wants to look at a draft version of that, an early version, let me know. But I think Andrea is going to look at one, and any questions you might have about it. And don't be shy to ask questions. I mean, it was a long process, and it's just good process. So if there's something, if you look at it, I know it's it's hard to read and audit for most of us. But if there's something that doesn't make sense and they're here, you want to ask questions, don't hesitate to ask questions. I mean, take advantage of the opportunity.
Okay, anything else on that? Anyone? Okay, so we're on to new business. First thing is policy 515, social media. Looks like George made all the changes that were requested at the committee of the whole. So does anyone have anything further? Okay, can I have a motion to approve this as presented?
I move that we approve 515 as presented. This is George.
I'll second that, Gina. This is Joe. Discussion? Okay, roll call.
Cheng,
Aye.
Linsdau, absent. Parkapisi,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, budget and appropriation ordinance. You want to introduce that, Ryan?
Sure. Well, hopefully everyone had a chance to read the memo that came with the board packet that talked about so there's a series of steps. Really, the budget process really is a year-round process. We always talk about that. If you look at the calendar year, January through June, we talk about the ins and outs of the budget planning process. What do we need to allocate for materials? Do we need to spend more on electronic materials? Do we need to do this and that? And then we get to the more formal part of the process, which started really with the tentative B&A ordinance that the board passed. We just had the public hearing. This is the official budget and appropriation ordinance, which is essentially identical to the tentative budget and appropriation ordinance you saw before, which basically gives us authorizes what what's appropriated for expenditures to meet our obligations in the fiscal year. The next step in the process will be the levy ordinance, which actually is levying for us to get the revenue through property tax dollars to obviously fund the library. Sometimes there's a truth in taxation hearing, which is only when in the event you would have to exceed basically greater than 5% of what you levied the previous year, which we will not do. So we don't have to worry about that step. And so that then, that's December, and then we move into January, and then we start talking about the budget for next year. So that's where we're at in this step in the process. So this obviously is important because this is, one of the things that we need to do legally to make sure we're able to levy tax dollars to run the library. Any questions, comments, concerns about this ordinance?
Nothing? Okay, so can I have a motion to approve as presented?
I move that ordinance 2020-2021-4 budget and appropriation for FY 2020-21 be approved as presented.
I second.
Discussion? Okay, roll call, Gina.
Parkapisi,
Aye.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Linsdau, absent. Arnold,
Aye.
Cheng,
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, proclamation for the Friends. This,
You
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
This is written by Jan and Sandy, really, and I just tweak it for the board. So I think that the committee report said the opposite, that I was the primary writer. I just wanted to get it out there that I'm really not the primary writer, but I just do my share. So,
Well, I think it's whoever works on it, it's a team effort, and it's a labor of love because we love our friends group, and this is just
Yeah.
a nice way for the board to recognize that. Obviously, the friends have not been able to do as much the past 7 months or so because of COVID, for obvious reasons. But
right.
we're
Brian and I had a conversation about this, and so that was the addition at the end. We decided we wanted to acknowledge that, that we realize that lots of things are on hold right now, but that we still value them for what they've done in the past and what they'll do in the future. So that was the last whereas. I think I wrote that one for this time.
My physical therapist told me the other day that she had 3 boxes of books that she had cleaned out her basement during COVID, and she called the library about it and said they weren't accepting it. So I'm like, leave them in your basement till we open,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been an issue because we did have some people that decided just to give us a gift and leave it outside the building.
Yeah.
So we are really out of room. I mean, we don't have our volunteers coming in for obvious reasons. And yeah, I wish we could accept them, but we don't have the space. So.
There's a large social aspect to the friends, and, being separated, and, a lot of our friends are senior citizens as well, and they may be more isolated. It might be a great idea once all of this is over, and, it can't be fast enough for me. We hold a welcome back to our friends and invite new friends, and, just have a hey, COVID's over, our friends are back, we missed you.
That's a good idea, Andrea.
Because I think we're going to lose friends just because, they can't come to meetings, they can't enjoy each other's company. And there'll be a lot of work to do.
Mhm.
Okay, who would like to make this motion?
Can do it. I move that resolution 2020-2021-2 proclamation Friends of the Library Week be approved as presented.
I'll second that. This is Joe, Gina. Discussion? Okay, Gina, roll call.
Sutton,
Aye.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Cheng,
Aye.
Farkapisi,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Linsdau absent. Ayes have it.
Okay, items for the next agenda? Besides what's already there? Anything? Okay. Would anyone like to speak in public forum?
Could I say something?
Of course.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, and as I'm starting to say this, I realized that Sandy has left the meeting. But I just wanted to let everybody know that Sandy and her graphic artist Karen and the communications department did an amazing job working on the wrap. I know Karen had some experience before, but the options that we were given to look at were amazing. And then when it came down to figuring out how to go with the best vendor, they pulled together all kinds of information and put together a very explicit document so that when that was presented to Michael Swendorowski, and he won't be able to charge as much because they had done so much of the work, he just had to look at it, and it was very easy for him to assess what we were looking at because of what they did. So I just wanted to make sure and say that they did an amazing job, and it's always really a great idea to have 2 proposals to look at or more so that you know what you're getting. And I think it's going to be great. So I just really wanted to commend them.
Okay. Announcements. Election packets on the 22nd, people.
Already.
The other thing too that's on here, obviously election packets, the ILA virtual conference, the early bird, I think by the end of this week is where we get the discounted rate. So if you have any interest, I realize that it's probably not the most ideal time. It's I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I believe Trustee Day is still on Thursday. I sent the information out, and if you need it again, let me know. But if you have any interest, let me know. There are funds for trustee development. So if it's something you're interested in, please let me know, and we can get you signed up.
Anyone else have an announcement?
I just wanted to make a comment. I was in Monday afternoon, and mostly because my grandson in Australia was getting tired of the books that I kept reading to him. So I brought the old ones back and told him, check in with me and I'll have some new ones. And he's suddenly into astronauts and spaceships and things. And so I stopped and asked, and it's killing me because I cannot remember the woman who helped me from from Cocos Cove. And she found 3 terrific books, 1 or 2 written by a former astronaut, and then one that was Grandma and Me, and it was about a grandma and a little boy reading about astronauts. And so I was just thrilled. It was great.
Cool. Anyone else? All right. Who would like?
Happened to me way back when my kids were potty training, and it was winter, and it was a big chore to take all the kids to the library. And I just called up the children's department, and they got like a pile of books. And I mean, I don't think our patrons are aware of how well the staff serves.
How knowledgeable they are. Also, I noticed that they had the little craft bags all set up ready to go, which I wish I had a little kid that I could do that with. Such a cool idea.
We have the best staff.
Yeah.
They're also getting ready to present the idea of doing book bundles, which are kind of a down and dirty reader's advisory, where you would just call up and say, just like, I'm interested in books on astronauts for such and such an age, and they'll put them together, place them on hold for you, and have them waiting. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yay.
Cool. All right. Anyone else? Okay. Who would like to move to adjourn?
So moved.
I second that.
That was Andrea.
We need a roll call, Gina.
Okay.
Thank you.
Arnold,
Aye.
Cheng,
Aye.
Farkapisi,
Aye.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Linsdale absent, Beckwith,
Aye.
ayes have it.
All right. We are adjourned at 7:48.
Hey,
Aye.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
See you tomorrow.
I'll be
Yeah,
in.
10
Gina.
o'clock. I'll be there.
And I'll be there at 3:30, Gina. See ya.
Okay. I'll see you there then. Bye.
Bye.